This is a review of The Art of Star Wars, The Clone Wars. And this book is really cool because it's actually bizarrely rare to see an art book for an animated TV show. Although having said that, this past year in particular has been really great in the increase in the number of art books we've seen for animated TV shows. But that certainly wasn't the case when this book was published in 2009 by Chronicle Books, who, as per usual, done a really great job. In the UK, it's actually published by Titan, another really great company, and both books are exactly the same, even, down to the cover and stuff like that. The on-screen visuals for 3D animated TV shows tend to be very sparse and not very detailed, and I don't think The Clone Wars is any exception to that. And so before opening this book, I was a little skeptical as to what the quality of the contents was going to be, and then completely surprised and delighted by just how stunning the artwork in this book is. I'm a huge Star Wars fan in general, but would not really call myself a fan of this Clone Wars TV series. I've seen maybe 4 of the 5 seasons, and I think it's good, it's a great idea, but it's definitely aimed at the younger set. But yeah, I wouldn't really say I was specifically a fan of the show. And so again, I was just so surprised by how much I enjoyed this book, which is why I would recommend that if you're a Star Wars fan, but you feel like you're sort of in the same boat, maybe you're a bit ambivalent towards the series, or you don't really like it, or whatever, I still strongly recommend you at least give this book some consideration, because even if you don't care that much about the show, this is just packed full of amazing Star Wars art, period. And additionally, the text and commentary throughout is the sort of stuff that I just found interesting as a general Star Wars fan. But then, of course, if you are a big fan of the show, then that's just going to be like icing on the cake. So the book starts with some really great text on the development of the show, like where this idea came from and how it grew. And then it moves on to the movie, and just in case you didn't know, this Clone Wars series premiered with a theatrically released movie, so it covers the movie, and then it moves on to Season 1, which makes up, the vast majority of the book, going episode by episode, which is really the only way to do an art book for a TV series. And then there are a couple of pages at the back that are called a sneak peek of Season 2. And that actually kind of leads to my sort of main disappointment with the book, which actually isn't really a criticism of the book in and of itself, is that it really only covers Season 1, and there are 5 seasons of The Clone Wars. And because I enjoyed this one so much, I wish there had been follow-up volumes. And also I haven't heard of any plans for a Star Wars Rebels art book, so it does feel like there's a lot of stuff that we're missing out on. But having said that, I'm glad that this book was really allowed to breathe and cover just one series rather than them trying to cram 5 seasons into one book. The actual design of the book is very clean, very simple, in stark contrast to a lot of other visual books. I actually think that many of the artworks in this book are printed actually too large. They take up too much space for work that is not very detailed and doesn't need to be that big. Particularly, there are probably far too many 2-page spreads, and also quite a lot of blank space. A nice way the book does sort of mitigate this is by having it be 270 pages, which is about, 100 pages longer than the regular art books published by Chronicle, which really does lead to a more fulfilling experience and helps you feel like, they're not skimping on stuff. Though there's not a whole lot of text throughout the book, I actually found the amount of text really appropriate, and not only that, but really, really good too. It was all sort of, like I said, even just as a general Star Wars fan or a general fan of animation, I really enjoyed a lot of the commentary throughout this book, especially all the stuff at the start of how this series came about and how it developed and changed, and things like the huge influence that Ralph McQuarrie's artwork played, and discussions of sort of different ideas for the show and where it was going to go and how it was sort of changed into what we know it today. And it's so interesting to be sort of privy to this development process that is something that a lot of even film art books neglect to shine any light on. However, one thing this book doesn't do that 99% of art books really neglect to do is actually show the development of the designs. Like with so many other books, you get like, maybe one of the earliest sketches, and then it kind of almost immediately changes into what we recognize today, which is something that is particularly noticeable in this book, because they spend a lot of time talking about how developing the aesthetic and look of this show, and specifically this quote that I'll read to you. "In the beginning, it was really exciting," remembers Wu. "We looked at so many different designs, it seemed like we could do anything." And so despite comments like that, there's actually not really any visuals that back that sentiment up. Also, something else you might be interested in is they did release a limited edition of this book. It's just the usual unnecessary collector's edition crap, a slipcase, a different cover, some art prints. It actually says in the product description for the limited edition that the book contains 3 or 5, depending where you read it, exclusive behind-the-scenes gatefolds. Now, from what I recall of having seen the limited edition, that is actually not true. And I could be wrong, but I really don't think so. So, again, this is just the usual attempt to get you to waste your money. But yeah, as for this book itself, I was just not expecting to enjoy it nearly as much as I did. It's really, really wonderful, and definitely something for any Star Wars fan to at least consider, because it is just filled with some really, really great Star Wars art.